Okay, so somewhere inside almost every adult, there's still a kid looking for someone bigger to fix things. A boss, a partner, a government, a guru. Someone whose strength can stand in for the strength we never quite built in ourselves. We call this love sometimes. We call it loyalty or faith or just needing a little help. And sometimes that's exactly what it is. But underneath certain versions of all three, there's a different thing running. A quiet refusal to stand on your own legs, dressed up convincingly as a virtue. This is the internal cage. And the cruel part is that nobody locks you inside. There's no jailer. You curl up inside the bars on your own. Pull them close around you like a blanket and call it a relationship. Call it belonging. Call it knowing your place. Look around and you'll see this everywhere, though it almost never says its real name out loud. The adult who can't make a decision without three other people's approval. The follower who's handed his entire worldview to a movement and feels lost the second it goes quiet. The partner who somewhere along the way stopped having opinions of their own and now just echoes someone stronger. And none of these people would say they're dependent. They'd say they're loyal, or humble, or easygoing, or devoted. And that's the heart of the problem. Dependency at its most complete doesn't feel like weakness from the inside. It feels like love. It feels like faith. It feels like home, which is exactly why so few people ever try to leave it. There's even a strange comfort in the bars. The dependent person rarely feels trapped in any obvious way. They feel held, safe, spared the dizziness of decisions that are completely their own. The cage doesn't press in on them painfully, it cradles them. And a cage that feels like a hug is the hardest cage in the world to want to leave. So let me back up, because there's this guy, Erich Fromm. He spent much of his career studying this exact pattern, and he gave it an unflattering name: the symbiotic attachment. In biology, symbiosis means two organisms fused into mutual dependence. Fromm borrowed the word for a particular kind of human bond, one that's fundamentally different from a healthy relationship between two whole people. A healthy bond joins two complete individuals who could each stand alone but choose to stand together. A symbiotic attachment fuses one incomplete self onto another, the way a vine fuses onto a tree, not to grow next to it, but to be held up by it, unable to stand without it. And Fromm spotted two roles in this fusion, two halves of the same disorder. The dominant one he called sadistic, not in the crude sense, in the structural one. This is the person who gets their entire sense of self from controlling someone who depends on them. They need to be needed. Remove the dependent person and they collapse. The submissive one Fromm called masochistic. And again, not mainly in the sexual way most people assume. Fromm's masochist is the person who's trying to dissolve their own separate self into someone or something larger and stronger. What they're running from isn't pain. What they're running from is the unbearable condition of standing alone, fully responsible, with nobody else to absorb the consequences of their existence. Both halves, Fromm insisted, are versions of the same underlying failure. Both are attempts to escape the basic aloneness of being an individual self. The sadist escapes by swallowing another person into himself. The masochist escapes by being swallowed. Neither one has solved the problem of how to be a free, separate human being. They've just found two different ways to avoid it. Here's what makes the masochistic side so easy to miss in yourself. It almost never shows up as weakness. It dresses, reliably, as something admirable. The employee who can't move without the boss's sign-off calls it respect for authority. The believer who's handed over every judgment to a doctrine calls it faith. The partner who's quietly disappeared into someone else's preferences calls it being supportive. The follower who repeats his movements every position calls it conviction. In each case, a surrender of the self got relabeled as a virtue. And the relabel is so convincing that the person doing it sincerely believes it. And here's Fromm's deepest insight. This dependency isn't really about the other person at all. The boss, the partner, the leader, the movement, these are interchangeable. They're not the cause of the dependency. They're just whatever happened to be standing nearby when the need came up. What's constant underneath every particular attachment is the terror of steering your own life. And this explains something that otherwise looks crazy. Take one magic helper out of a dependent person's life and they don't become free. They go looking, often immediately, for the next one. The person who escapes a controlling relationship and lands within months in another that looks gentler but works identically. The follower who leaves one ideology only to fall just as hard for its opposite. The seeker who drops one guru and finds another by the end of the year. The cage moved with them because the cage was never the boss, the partner, or the guru. The cage was the muscle of independent judgment, wasted away from never being used, and then mistaken for a permanent disability. A thing the person has come to believe they simply can't do, when really it's only a thing they've never practiced. This is the architecture of the internal cage. It's built, brick by brick, from 1,000 small outsourcings of judgment, each one reasonable on its own. Ask someone before you decide. Defer to the expert. Follow the consensus. Trust the leader. None of these is wrong by itself, but stacked across an entire life, they build a self that's forgotten how to carry its own weight. And a self that can't carry its own weight will cling desperately to whatever holds it up and will feel that clinging as love. Now look at how perfectly modern mass culture is built to supply magic helpers on demand. An algorithm to tell you what's true, so you never have to weigh evidence yourself. An influencer to tell you what's good, so you never have to build your own taste. A tribe to tell you who you are, so you never have to face the scary blink of an undefined identity. Each of these offers exactly what the masochistic character is hunting for: the sweet, addictive relief of no longer being the one who has to decide. And the more these helpers get used, the more necessary they become. Because every act of outsourcing further weakens the muscle that might one day have made them unnecessary. Dependency, fed, gets hungrier. This is why it so rarely fixes itself, and why it so often gets worse with age instead of easier. Watch the pattern across a single life, and it gets almost unbearable to see clearly. As a kid, the person deferred to parents. Natural, necessary. As a student, they deferred to teachers and to the approval of peers. As a young adult, they deferred to a partner, then an employer, then whichever expert or influencer or movement offered the most confident answers. At no point did they pause to build the internal authority that would let them stand alone. The deferring just migrated from one thing to the next, smooth and continuous. So the person hit middle age having never once been the final authority on their own life. And here's the quiet tragedy Fromm pointed at. A person like that often believes, sincerely, that they just haven't found the right thing to commit to yet. The right leader, the right partner, the right cause that'll finally give them solid ground. They search and search. But the ground they're looking for was never going to come from outside. The only solid ground is the self that can stand without it. And that's exactly the thing they keep declining to build. Because building it means tolerating the very aloneness they're running from, and mass culture has industrialized the supply. There's never been an age so rich in magic helpers, so generous with ready-made certainties, so eager to spare you the work of standing on your own. Every platform competes to think for you more smoothly than the last. The dependent self, which used to have to find a single human authority to lean on, can now lean on an entire infrastructure built to catch its weight. And the more it leans, the less it remembers it ever had legs of its own. So what do you do? And Fromm's answer wasn't independence as a slogan. He had no patience for the lonely, brittle, fake strength of the guy who just refuses to need anyone. That, he understood, is just the sadistic pole. The same disease wearing the opposite mask. What Fromm prescribed was something he called productive love and productive work. Engagement with the world that flows out of your own strength instead of filling a hole in it. The ability to be connected to others without being fused to them. To need people the way two standing trees share the same soil, not the way a vine needs the trunk it can't live without. And the path to that strength, practically, starts almost absurdly small. Make one decision today, by yourself, and tell no one until it's already done. Notice the urge, and it'll be strong, to get approval first, to run it past someone, to soften the loneliness of having chosen alone. Notice it and let it go unfed. Then watch what happens inside you when no magic helper is available. There'll be a flash of something like panic, a small version of the aloneness Fromm described. Don't solve it by reaching for the next helper. Sit in it, let it rise, and let it pass. It always passes. And each time you let it pass without escaping into dependency, the wasted muscle of self-direction grows back a little. This isn't a one-time act. It's a slow rebuilding, a relearning of a capacity that was never truly lost, only neglected. You'll fail at it often. You'll catch yourself reaching for the boss, the crowd, the guru, the feed, and the work is simply to catch it more often, sooner, and reach a little less. The internal cage was built from 1,000 small surrenders of judgment. It comes apart the exact same way. One decision, fully and consciously your own, at a time. No one's going to free you from it, because no one put you in it. The same hands that pull the bars close are the only hands that can push them open. They've always been your own.